Hello, this is Carrie again, and today we're going to be looking at different dry blending methods using these 4 brands of pencil. We're mainly going to be looking at the Prismacolor, but we're also going to be looking at the Prismacolor Softcore Premier. We're also going to be looking at the Faber Castell Polychromos, the Spectrum Noir, as well as your basic Crayola, and we're going to see how different dry blending methods interact with these 4 brands of color pencil. All right, we'll be back. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some sort of basic definitions to get us all on the same general page. So this is shading. Shading goes from light to dark or dark to light. That's shading. Blending is when you lay colors on top of each other, and then you can do blending and shading. So what dry blending method lets you do is dry blending methods and wet blending methods also. They let you combine your blending and your shading together to give it a smoother look. So there are some wet blending methods. I'm not going to look at wet blending methods, but I am going to give you a quick overview of what wet blending is. Wet blending is taking your wet blending method and usually a stump or a Q-tip, and you just put a little bit of your blending method on the stump, and then you use that to help you blend it. So that's how wet blending works. But again, this video is not really about wet blending. There are a number of wet blending methods you can use, and at a later date I will go over some of those wet blending methods that you can use. But for now, we're going to look at dry blending methods. And I like dry blending methods for a lot of personal reasons. One of the main reasons I like them is that I can't see very well. So I usually have to have my art fairly close to my face, and I'm concerned with wet blending methods like odorless pen thinners that I don't want to have that close to my nose. So dry blending methods let me do that without putting, my health at risk and without having to feel like there's a danger for me. So that's another reason why a lot of people prefer dry blending methods. They're about as non-toxic as regular coloring, so you're not adding any bits of any additional danger. So that's one of the main reasons why people prefer dry blending methods. Another one is that it's just portable. It's easy. You don't have to have a liquid and a stump and all this other stuff. You can just take whatever you're going to use to dry blend. All right, so for dry blending, one of the first method of dry blending is just to place one color on top of another and just leave it at that. And that's perfectly fine, and many people do that. Another way is to use a specialized blender pencil. So these are 2 specialized blender pencils. This is the Prismacolor specialized blender, and then this is the Caran a full bright blender pencils. And the specialized blender pencils are just the pencil without any of your pigments in it. So it has all the waxes and the binders that make the regular colored pencils, but without any color. So that's one way to blend. Another way is to use the white color. So this is the Prismacolor white. So we're going to be going over the dry blending methods. So let's get started. So if you want to use only the stump, so say for example you want to use only the stump, a lot of people are finding that doesn't really work for them. And the other thing that using only the stump does is that it pushes the paper, it pushes the pigment into the tooth of the paper and flattens out the tooth so that it's more difficult to go in and add additional layers. So that's why a lot of people don't like using just the stump. But if you want to, you can. To me, that doesn't give you the best effect. Another way is to get your dry blender pencils, and now this is where the real fun begins. So if you go with the Prismacolor, so you can see already the difference between that and using just the stump. So you can go from light to dark, and you can see already how that brightens the color, but it also pushes the color around. And you can also press really light and just do very light. You can do a very light blend like this, or you can press harder. I generally like to press fairly hard, but you don't have to. You can do it just fine. You see how if you press lighter, you can do it. You can also do, one of the things I really love about doing these, especially the Prismacolor Blender pencil, is going from dark to light. And you see how that just pushes that color over. You see how that just pushes that color over. Especially when you combine that with a hard press, that going from dark to light is just very nice. And you can see the difference between going from light to dark and going from dark to light. So you can see that very well with this Prismacolor Blender pencil. And then once you've laid down your path of, if you want to go from light to dark, you can do that. So that's really nice. The other thing to keep in mind with these blender pencils is that you are laying down the wax and the pigment, so that if you then turn around and try to go on top of it, you can, but it's easier if you do all of your blending first and then you go on top of it. You can totally go, let me see if I get some, let me just get a random color out and show you what happens if you try to go on top of it after you've done the blending. So after you've done the blending, if you try to go on top of it, it's not going to lay down as many colors. So you see how it's really not laying down as much color as opposed to how much color it lays down before I do the blender pencil. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So when you go there, you can lay down a little bit, but it's really not as much. So that's the thing to keep in mind, is you really should save your blender pencil for your final stage of blending. So that's one thing, is your blender pencil. Blending with white is something I don't do very often, but it can be done. And as before, you can go from light to dark or dark to light, or you can just go back and forth like this. And as you see, blending with white does lighten your blend a little bit, and it does give you a similar effect. So that's blending with white. And if we try blending with white here, doing both the blending and the shading, we'll see the effect here. And this is again a very light press up here. Let me do a darker press, a heavier press. So this is doing a much heavier press. So this is doing a much heavier press, and then this is doing a lighter press at the bottom here. So that's blending with white. I personally, this blending with white, what blending with white does, you can see that it does lighten the color a little bit. You still get some of that blending done. So if you don't have a specialized blender pencil, or if you run out in an emergency, you can totally blend with white, but I do prefer using the specialized blender pencil, and you'll see why in a minute. Because if you take this and you start in the middle and then you go out, you'll see how much richer the color is. See how much richer and darker the color is using the Prismacolor Blender pencil. So this one is the Prismacolor Blender pencil. This one is blending with white, and then now we're going to do the Caran Blender pencil. And you'll see that it generally reacts the same, but just different brands. Like some people prefer one brand over another. In terms of the specialized blender pencils, Derwent, I think, also has a specialized blender pencil. But you'll see that this will definitely brighten it and make it lighter, make it brighter, whereas the white definitely creates a much lighter tone. And I personally prefer the Prismacolor over the Caran only because the Caran does not move as much color around. If you see, if I do this, you'll see how much more color gets moved around with the Prismacolor Blender pencil. So you can see right there. So I feel like the Prismacolor Blender pencil just takes that color and really moves it around and really darkens it up much more than you get with the Caran. But I do like the Caran because the Caran, as I say, these are the same pencils and the same wax media. So with the Prismacolor Blender pencil, you see, just like with a regular Prismacolor pencil, that it really brings down the point fairly fast. With the Caran d'Ache, you can keep that point for a while. So I like the Caran d'Ache for getting into corners mainly. But for doing most of my blending, I'm using the Prismacolor. But again, that's personal preference. You can see that there's many options for you to do your dry blending. And the other thing is that you have your different brands here, so I can show you what it looks like if we take different brands and we do those same blending techniques with this same Prismacolor Blender pencil. And this is the Crayola Blender, and you can see how this Prismacolor Blender pencil, it really does a great job with any brand of blender pencil, with any brand of color pencil. So and I love using these. Look at how rich that gets with the Faber Castell. Look at how rich that gets with the Faber Castell. I absolutely love. Matter of fact, Faber Castell is the one that I mainly use. But this blends so beautifully, and you can do your shading too with this. Look at this. And look what beauty this does with your shading. This is the Prismacolor Blender pencil. So you can see it here. Alright, it works really well with the Prismacolor, but I really love using this with the Faber Castell. Even though the Faber Castell is an oil-based pencil, I think it still really works together. It still really works great together. So then, the same way as before, we can take, if you want to take the Caran d'Ache, you want to take the Caran d'Ache and see how the Caran d'Ache does. And you see the difference between the Caran d'Ache. So you can use them both at the same time, or you can use them separately, but you see how the Caran d'Ache doesn't move as much color around, which may be more what you want or less what you want. You can see a little bit of the green got pushed all the way out here. With the Caran d'Ache, that doesn't happen. So that may be the effect you want. So you can see how the Prismacolor made this section darker, whereas the Caran d'Ache did not do that. So that's something that may be what you want. So anyway, back to blending with white. So this is the Crayola white. This is Crayola white. And so you can see again with the white, it lightens it up, but it doesn't really move the color around the way that the Caran d'Ache and the Prismacolor Blender pencils do. You can blend with white, but you're quickly seeing why that's not my favorite way to blend. So then I got so many whites here that I don't want to mess it up. Okay, so the Faber Castell white. Once again, we're taking the white, and the white does move some of the color around, but it doesn't really. I prefer the effect that you get with the Prismacolor for the white over the effect you get with the white. So you can see, but one thing I do like about the white is if you're doing some silver or any sort of kind of surface like that, like for stone or windows, then I do use the white. So you can use them interchangeably, and you can use them together. So you can take, you see how for this section I blended it with the white, and then I can take it and go back with the Caran d'Ache Blender pencil. So you're not stuck with only one method. You can use them on top of each other. You can use them, you can use one section with white, one section with Caran d'Ache, one section with Prismacolor. So that's one way that you can really get the most out of your Blender pencils. And I assume you can use some with the Derwent as well. Sorry, I have a slight cold. Oops, I have a slight cold. But it is what it is. So the Spectrum Noir, because they come in the Spectrum Noir, because they come in these tins of 24 colors, I don't actually have a white Spectrum Noir, but you also don't need a white to blend. You can blend, you can use another color, another light color. So you can do that too if you want to give something a tint. So you can use the white. But despite the fact that the Spectrum Noir said that they're blendable, I actually found them to be the least blendable of all the brands I tried. So that's interesting. So then let me show you with the Prismacolor Blender pencil So let me get out some of this color from the... So you can use a nail file or anything like that, or a sanding block to get out some of the color from your blending pencil. I don't know if you can see it, but this way, so that when you're blending, you're not taking extra color along that you don't want. Because this is the closest I could get to green and brown on the Spectrum Noir. But let me show you. Even here, even though these are the least blendable of all the pencils, even here you can still see, and you can go, let me take out some of this. Oh yeah, you see that color that's on there? Let me take out some of that color and then just go from light to dark. And then you can see the effect that the colorless blender pencil has on that, as opposed to going back and forth. But these are your blending methods, your dry blending methods. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel, because I will be giving away this very set of Spectrum Noir pencils in as soon as I finish reviewing them. There is a current giveaway running, so the giveaway is for a coloring book. So if you subscribe to my channel, you have a chance to win. So I hope you enjoy, you like the video. Leave a comment below with any questions or any other kind of videos that you want to see. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something about the different dry blending methods and how they work together, and how they work individually. All right, have a good day. Bye.